Canada-based Babbar Khalsa's Lakhbir Singh alias Landa has been declared a terrorist by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Landa was involved in the terror attack on the building of the Punjab State Intelligence Headquarters in Mohali, remember, and was also involved in the supply of IEDs, arms and weapons from across border to various modules for carrying out terrorist activities in Punjab and elsewhere. Landa and his associates have been conspiring to disrupt peace, carry out targeted killings, extortions and other anti-national activities in Punjab and other parts of the country, read the declaration by the MHA. Now, however, the biggest question is, why is Justin Trudeau continuously ignoring the backgrounds of the people that him and his father chose to give refuge to in Canada? What does this really mean? What are the next steps as far as people like Landa and Pannu are concerned? And how do we now make this point loud and clear to Canada that the more you allow these gangsters and terrorists and murderers in your country, they will bite you one day as well. I take this conversation forward with me, Major General Gigi Dwivedi with us on the broadcast, Colonel J. Sodhi and Sumit Peer with us as well. Let me begin this conversation with Major General Gigi Dwivedi. Major General Dwivedi, we have for a very long time been designating people such as Hafiz Saeed and other terrorists in Pakistan. We've been sending dossiers to Pakistan, but they've been falling on deaf ears. We have unfortunately seen, sir, in the past year, Canada also somewhere following the footsteps of Pakistan. How do we ensure that our journey with Canada as far as getting these criminals booked and to justice is concerned is different from what we've managed to achieve with Pakistan?
Well, Devika, you have drawn some parallel between Pakistan and Canada. Well, I think Canada definitely is following Pakistani footsteps, but the context is slightly different and also the approach is different. As far as Pakistan is concerned, terrorism is the national stated policy, and this is being pursued as a, what we call it, the low intensity war or the war by other means by the Pakistan army. And today, Canada is following the same, but in a different manner, more on the political front, because it's not their stated national policy, but it's the policy of Trudeau, because he has certain compulsions. These compulsions are, he is running a minority government. Secondly, he requires the support of the fringe elements, the Khalistani elements, for two reasons. One is the funding, and secondly, of course, is the political support. Now, this is the main issue why Trudeau is soft pedaling and in fact providing tacit support to the Khalistani elements. As far as India is concerned, I think we have to have a different approach. One with Pakistan and secondly with Canada. With Canada, the approach should be that politically we need to give a very strong message to Trudeau that enough is enough, and we will not be tolerating this type of, his double gaming as far as India is concerned. Secondly, I think this is the right step that we have declared Lakhbir Singh Landa as a terrorist, and the other terrorist outfit also are in same boat. Whether you take Pannu, his Sikhs for Justice, or Niger, who was eliminated in the inter-gang war in Canada, that is the Khalistani Tiger Force. So I wish to make two, three very important points. Firstly, we have to have a very clear national policy that terrorism cannot be tolerated at any context. Secondly, very strong message should be given to Canada and other countries which are supporting the people like Niger and party. And third important point is at home also, because these terrorist organizations have international support, and they also try to garner some support from the home side. Because I belong to Punjab and most of the people are from the region where I belong to, I think we need to have a very heavy-handed hand at home front also. So therefore, we need to take it internationally, bilaterally with Canada, and also at the home front, so that such forces are not conniving with the external forces which are inimical to India's interest. Devika.
Okay, but Major Dwivedi, if we were to just quickly glance over Lakhbir Singh Landa's history, it says that, you know, he fled to Canada in 2017, but it was in July of 2011 when the first case was actually registered against Landa for a murder under the Arms Act. And since then, a total of 18 criminal cases were registered against this man, including murder, drug smuggling, so on and so forth. He is also, it says, before he fled to Canada, in fact, in 2017, the Punjab police had registered the last case against him under kidnapping charges in Moga. And some, of course, reports also state that this man was the main conspirator of the attack that took place in the Punjab police headquarters in Mohali. Major Dwivedi, the question then is, why would a country like Canada, you know, we're not talking about a Pakistan here, we're talking about Canada, which had a reputation as a, you know, certain a first world nation, developed, progressive, neighbor to America, democracy intact, you know, it was ticking all of those boxes back in the day, and that was perhaps the attraction as well. Why does a country like that then allow people who have serious criminal records in their homelands to come and settle there? What is a Justin Trudeau thinking when his government allows this to happen? Is he thinking that they will somehow become law-abiding citizens when they exit India and enter Canada, and suddenly they will be very nice, you know, humble, polite, very pure citizens who won't be indulging in any of this gangsterism in Canada also?
Well, Devika, first and foremost, you know, the Lakhbir Singh Landa belongs to Harike, which is the neighboring district of my hometown. And he has definitely a criminal record. But the point is, there's a nexus that works. Nexus works that these people land up in Canada and take political asylum. Now, there's a complete network that works. Secondly, that they are part of the network like Khalistan Tiger Force or Sikhs for Justice. They have an international collaboration, and they do a lot of networking and also funding and political support. Coming specifically to Trudeau policy, as I stated earlier, that Trudeau has political compulsion because first and foremost, he is running a minority government. Secondly, his support base, political support base today is at the lowest as per the popular rating. It is just about 17%, and he is lagging behind the opposition party candidate who enjoys about 48% support. So he is fighting for political survival, and therefore he requires the support of the fringe Khalistani element, which is actually political compulsion for him, also for survival. And the important point is, there is a lot of radicalization that is taking place in Canada of the young people who either migrate or have taken political asylum in Canada. And case in point is, you know, the latest we have seen that how Manpreet and other party people, they were, you know, radicalized in Pakistan, in Canada, in US. So therefore, this complete network is in place, and this is the political compulsion of Trudeau, and he will go to any extent to save his own place and is also his own position at the cost of bilateral relation between India and Canada and also the larger national interest. So I would say that he is being very foolish, he is being very immature, and he is being very short-sighted by lending support to these fringe element, the terrorist element, which is not in the large interest of Canada or India-Canada relations. Devika.
Right, absolutely. Sumit, we are bringing you in on the same point. You know, just logically speaking, like I said, Canada did have a certain sort of first world image that it was managing to continue on before the world. It's still very high up on all of your, you know, the indexes that are released, your democracy index, so on and so forth. I'm not saying that we need to believe in them. I'm just saying that they had this sort of an image that, yes, we are a very progressive, peaceful, first world country. Nobody really ever thought of Canada per se as an enemy. If you were to ask any country, we were not even talking about Canada just a couple of years ago. But now that you see the sort of people that Canada is allowing to settle on its own soil, what do you think really could be the thought process here? Because so many times you then end up reading in the newspapers that one Sikh gang has managed to kill the head of another Sikh gang in Canada, and here you have Justin Trudeau thinking that India is sitting and killing all of these Sikh leaders in Canada, when their local police a lot of times believes that it's actually just a gang war, the results of petty gang wars between two groups. If you allow criminals and gangsters and people who've been charged with murder, drug smuggling to settle in your country, what are you expecting them to do? What are they contributing to a Canada?
Devika ji, thank you very much for having me on your show. In fact, you have summed it beautifully. The whole idea is, what is the logic behind it? Look, let me be very clear. If you talk of Pakistan, in my opinion, Canada is ahead of Pakistan, because in Pakistan, we were talking, I think 2 days back, that Hafiz Saeed's son is thinking of contesting an election, and this Tehreek-e-Milli is a powerful, emerging as a powerful political party in Pakistan. But here in Canada, Khalistanis have already infiltrated the government. Khalistanis are a part of government. Khalistanis are making sure the government survives. We are talking Canada is at least 3 steps ahead. If you ask me today, does Justin Trudeau have a say? No. Because what is happening? Look, politician, criminal, gangster, and this human trafficking, flesh trade, drug trafficking, hawala, all this has become very murky. Now, these people who are here terrorists become gangsters there. But again, they are into all these businesses. And Nexus operates, and what General Saab rightly said, they ask for a political asylum. Now, political asylum you cannot get without a politician's patronage there. Who is the politician who is giving you the patronage? Jagmeet Singh and his clan. So Jagmeet Singh ensures that you just get 1 or 2 FIRs here, you send an application, you will get fatafat with a seal and stamp, you will get the political asylum, then you become a part of the system. Now, Justin Trudeau unfortunately doesn't have a say, or fortunately has chosen to keep his eyes closed. The right thing what we have done is we have started designated them as a terrorist. There will be a day very soon, you will see, you will have more internationally designated terrorists in Canada living and breathing as Canadian citizens than in Pakistan. Still, Pakistan doesn't acknowledge the Hafiz Saeed. Still, they say Dawood Ibrahim is not here. We don't know who is Dawood Ibrahim. But here in Canada, you have terrorists going right, left, and straight. You have the Prime Minister of Canada fighting with the most powerful democracy in the world, India, for terrorists. I think Canada is 5 steps behind Pakistan. It has crossed Pakistan. This is how dangerous it can get when terrorists infiltrate the political system. It is beyond Trudeau, it is beyond Canada. Now they have infiltrated. Now, what you rightly said, that people are killing each other because this is what the people are good at. What do you expect a Landa or a Niger or all to do? They will kill each other. And then when they had killed each other, when that image comes, Canada is becoming the Wild West, where there is a open and brazen gang war, and it's not safe for business. What does Trudeau does? Oh, it's the India who ordered the kill. Oh, it's the RAW. Oh, it's the Indian government. It's the Indian government agents. He gets these hallucinations because he is trying to hide his failure. He and his father let Khalistanis come, settle, and finally infiltrate the government. He's trying to hide the fact it's because of a Khalistani he is in the power. He's trying to hide the fact because Khalistanis have infiltrated his government and they're setting the terms for his survival. He's not willing to acknowledge that to the world. And as far as though G7 and all are concerned, for example, if I talk to the BRICS GDP is more than G7. Today, the BRICS country GDP is more than G7. G7 are all their, these imaginary things what these white people have made. What is the qualification of Trudeau? He is his papa's boy. He looks very good. That's what he thinks. Failed model, failed actor, failed film producer, failed director, but a very successful politician because of the help of Khalistanis. What is great about Canada? Look at the GDP, 2 trillion. Look at PPP, 2 trillion. At PPP level, we have crossed 14 trillion. You are just next door to America. Your skin color is white, and you think you're the 52nd state of America. That doesn't give you any legitimacy as a country. Why does the world need Canada? The answer is not too much. If you look at our trading partners, they are not even top 20. Yes, we have a very big diaspora here. But because of this, what Trudeau is doing? He is trying to bring bad name to all the Sikhs of India and all the Sikhs of Canada and all the Hindus here and all the Sikhs there.
So Sumit,
is keeping for them.
But Sumit, the bottom line is that there was a time when Canada truly wanted a lot of Indians and people from other countries to actually come and settle, right? And that's something that's a stance that they still maintain. regardless of their relations now souring with India, because the country was in a way struggling, one can say. Like I said, you may be very high up on your democracy index and your hunger index and all of those indexes that come out. You may be very high up on that and you may be a first world country on paper, but the country was struggling and therefore they were looking desperately for more and more people to come in. Is it in that desperation that elements such as a Pannu or a Landa have actually been allowed to come and settle into Canada? Because I'm truly just wondering if, let's say, the roles were reversed here, Sumit. There's a person with a criminal background in Canada, has very serious charges from Canada, and this is not something that you can hide when you're applying for your visas and when you're doing all of those other things to reach another country. If such a person were to enter India and Canada were to warn India that, listen, this is a person with a very, very shady background. This is a person with criminal charges in our country. So you need to watch out and you probably don't need to let this person in. We would take that warning seriously, right? Because we obviously don't want criminals from another country coming and settling into our country. So I'm just trying to understand that what really could have been the thought process. Was it in an overall desperation that Justin Trudeau has allowed these sort of elements to just now settle into Canada? And like you said, you pointed out, that because now there are all these gang wars that are erupting within Canada, and a lot of people are saying that Canada is becoming a Khalistan itself, a mini Khalistan itself, that all of this blame game over India is just a big attempt at a cover-up, which really will blow up in the face of a Justin Trudeau sooner rather than later.
You're absolutely right, Devgaji. Look, when his father was a very good buddy of Fidel Castro. He always had this communist kind of a mindset with them. This anti-establishment system was always with them. They never liked thriving democracies. They never liked upcoming India. And when all these nefarious elements from his father's time wanted a political asylum there, they could give them asylum. Look, IC 814, the maximum people killed were Canadians. 87 were kids out of that. He never persecuted the person who did IC 814. He gave them the political asylum. So Theodore thought that his father said by having these people, they can be used at the right time as handles to cause trouble and print pricks within India. But eventually, he could never get an idea or illusion how have they infiltrated the government. And today, honestly, if your proximity with Jagmeet Singh and his clan, his quadri, you don't need to even go to Theodore. He can just make sure you get a political asylum. They know that these people are criminals, but it is beyond his control. India doesn't harbor terror. India doesn't harbor criminals. India is not an international sanctuary of terrorists with a passport. In Canada, in Pakistan, the difference is terrorists don't have possibly a Pakistani passport. They're hiding somewhere in a camp in POJK. But here, you give them a Canadian passport, you give them legitimacy, and you give the rights to travel. Now, one thing what shatters my imagination, if this Landa tomorrow with a Canadian passport decides to enter US and cause a big blast there or a big issue there, practically he's a Canadian. He holds a Canadian passport. He can enter Europe. He can enter US. He can go anywhere in the world without a visa. That a Pakistani terrorist doesn't have the privilege of. So Canada being a harboring terrorist has become a global threat. Soon Americans, soon the Europeans, and soon the civilized world will realize how much of a threat it is. Because for them, the passport is Canadian. They don't know the background of the person. And Justin Trudeau is going to do nothing about it because he thinks by doing this and hiding this and blaming India, he can cover his and his father's backtracks. No, it is already late. He has to do decisive action and throw them out of the country. But his political partner, Jagmeet Singh, gets money, gets finance, gets legitimacy because it has become a dangerous cocktail of criminal, politician, gang war, narcotics, hawala, drug trade, flesh trade. This has become an all dangerous cocktail and people are making money out of him. And these people like Landa and Pannu and all are pawns in the cog. So they're pawns in the wheel which are being used. If you have to check something in the Canada, you have to check people like Jagmeet Singh, you have to check the political system of the Canada. Canada needs a revolution to reinvent itself. With the current infrastructure, with the current structure, there is not a lot of hope. As I'm repeating again, ma'am, this is the only country where terrorists and Khalistanis have infiltrated the government and the government is running on their Hamokaram. This is not happen in any other country. Still, Pakistan is far behind than Canada and these people have got Canadian passports. Imagine the kind and quantum of access they can have to the world with a Canadian passport and look at their track records. What a danger Theodore is bringing from the whole world. He's bringing a danger which is unproportional. And remember, it only took 18 radicalized people to do a WT, 9/11.
Yeah.
World Trade Center were backed by 18 radicalized people. And I am very sure you will have 1,100 or 11,000 of them sting in Canada. So, Mr. America and the whole world, wake up. We are doing a favor to you by designating them as terrorists, so you wake up. I don't want to see a situation where you have more designated terrorists in Canada than in Pakistan. And the way it is going, I would request Minister of External Affairs and HMO to designate all of them as terrorists. Let world know who is harboring most of the internationally designated terrorists in the world. Is it Pakistan or is it Canada? Who is winning the race in international terror, harborizing and legitimizing international terror? Pakistan or Canada? Who is more dangerous to the world security? Pakistan or Canada? Soon the time will come that Canada will be seen as a more dangerous to the world security than a Pakistan, because Canadian passport has a lot of power and gives you a lot of free travel, and a lot of things are below the radar if you carry Canadian passport. Let world wake up. India is doing a favor to the world by
Right.
designating these nefarious characters.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Colonel J.S. Sodhi into the conversation as well. Colonel Sodhi, just want to understand from your perspective as well, sir. Will this harboring of these sort of elements like a Landa and a Pannu, and earlier it was a Nijar, and I'm sure there are several other names in that, we're putting out some on our screens as well. Will this then be the ultimate downfall of a Justin Trudeau? Because after a point, it becomes very confusing. Like I said, the thought process of a government which is allowing people that are openly threatening the diplomats of another country, that are openly threatening the prime minister of another country, that are openly threatening the foreign ministers of another country, that are setting embassies and consulates on fire, that are launching protests, that are literally hitting people on the streets. It becomes very difficult to understand what really is the gain here for a Justin Trudeau.
Jai Hind, Devika. It's my honor to be on a news channel and a privilege to be with the esteemed co-panelist. Bismarck had famously quoted, "Fools learn from their own mistakes, wise learn from others' mistakes." Canada, which prides itself as a developed country and part of the elite G7, should be a wise country to understand and learn from what has happened in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where those very terrorists whom they gave shelter have now ruined these countries. Another quote which the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau needs to take note of is when on 11th October 2011, when Hillary Clinton, the then Secretary of State, visited Pakistan and said famously that, "Remember, those who keep snakes in the backyards, these snakes will bite you one day too." If Canada cannot understand these two quotes by Hillary Clinton and Bismarck, they are doomed to be in greater trouble in the times ahead, which is evident the way the Canadian credibility in the international forums has been falling down rapidly ever since they accused India of false things which India had never done. Devika, the first Indian to reach Canada was in 1897, who happened to be a Sikh gentleman by the name of Risaldar Major Kesar Singh of the 25 Cavalry of the British Indian Army, and he was on board the RMS Empress. And since then, from 1897 till 1979, thousands and lakhs of Indians, be it Sikhs, Hindus, Muslim, Christians, went to Canada to make a better life for themselves. Things changed drastically in 1980 when Pierre Trudeau, the father of the current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, became the Prime Minister of Canada, and he started giving asylum in droves to the Khalistanis who were on run from India because of the crackdown being done by the Indian government. Now, these Khalistanis whom Pierre Trudeau started giving asylum started mushrooming in large numbers, and we saw what happened from Canada when they blew up the Air India Kanishka flight. Ever since 1980 till date, while Pierre Trudeau and Justin Trudeau are the culprits in fueling this Khalistani terrorism there, every Canadian Prime Minister since 1980, irrespective of whichever political party he belongs to, has always supported these terrorists on their soil. Devika, just a few weeks back, there was this article in the Washington Post which said that the reason why US is not taking any action on Gurpatwant Singh Pannu is because he's a CIA agent. I perfectly concur with this article. The fact that Canada and US are not taking any action on these terrorists who are waging a war on India, these terrorists who are waging a war on Hinduism, and they're allowed to roam openly there, I think it is part of a bigger racket in which the governments of Canada and US are deeply involved. Else, any country where such things happen, the government would have taken strong action, except obviously the failed countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan. In India, we can take pride. Not one person roams or not one person resides in our country which is supporting terrorism in any part of the world. If India can do it, which is yet to be declared a developed country, these developed countries like US and Canada could have done long time back. So I come to the same point. There is something amiss. There is some cocktail going on between these developed country governments and these terrorists, because these developed countries, on one hand, say that they are friends of India, but within, they are very jealous of India's rise, and especially Devika, in the last 10 years, ever since Prime Minister Modi has become the Prime Minister of our country, the stature which India has gained internationally, be it geopolitically, be it economically, or be it militarily, this is what is upsetting these whites or these developed countries. And that is why we are seeing year on year, since 2014, the terrorism in these countries against India is increasing. Well, what Canada can expect in future? Canada can expect they'll become worse than Pakistan. I totally agree with Mr. Sumit Peer when he says that Canada is already ahead of Pakistan in many, parameters of terrorism. But till date, the world has little respect left for Canada, which it doesn't have for Pakistan. If Justin Trudeau doesn't mend his ways, the day is not far when the epicenter of the world terrorism will be Canada. And finally, Devika, one last point. I would request your viewers, whenever they have time, they should read a book, which is by the name Cold Terror, How Canada Nurtures and Exports Terrorism, which has been written by Stewart Bell. This book brings out very lucidly how Canada since 1980 has become a heaven for terrorism and terrorists.
Absolutely. And Colonel Sodhi, on that point, Meera and G.D. Vivedi, bringing you into the conversation back, sir, as Colonel Sodhi also pointed out, that it is not new. It is since the 1980s, because when we were covering the Kanishka bombing on NewsX, the trails and trails of papers associated with Tajinder Pal Singh, who was the main conspirator, the key terrorist of the Babbar Khalsa behind the Kanishka bombing, and how that was ignored by Canadian intelligence and then by Canadian government, and subsequently no action whatsoever was taken against that man. Even back then, India had warned Canada that this is a fugitive from our country, a criminal from India who is arriving on your soil, on your land, and you must hand him back, you must hand him over. And it was back then Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's father, who took that decision to not hand back Tajinder Bagga, and a few months down the line, he ended up blowing a plane that carried mostly Canadians.
Absolutely, Devika, because it's very unfortunate that why the senior Trudeau took that line despite very clear warning, and how the Canadian security agencies actually were blindsided, or they purposely brushed it aside, and India paid a very heavy price because we lost over 240 of our nationals. But point I wish to make is that we need to draw a very clear distinction between Pakistan and Canada, because two are different ball games. As far as Pakistan is concerned, terrorism is controlled by ISI and Pakistan Army, which is not the case as far as Canada is concerned. In Canada, it's more the politicians who are actually using these fringe elements to their own political advantage. And secondly, why the conducive environment, why Canada become a safe haven? Because the system is so favorable to such elements, whereas they get official recognition, political asylum, and then lot of space in the political spectrum, in the political arena, and they are holding important positions in the government. Now, this is what has to be understood. Our approach has to be more political, because it's not the Canadian Army or the Canadian Defense Forces who are controlling the element. It's the Canadian political dispensation. And that is what we have to go straight forward and make it very clear that we need to take a very tough political, diplomatic actions, like declaring these likes of Lakbir Singh, Landa, and others as terrorists. And also, we must ensure that these people do not get support from the home. And there is
Yes.
a nexus between Pakistan, also in ISI, CIA, and other agencies, where these people are actually treated as assets because they serve the interest of their security and intelligence agencies. Devika.
Right, absolutely. I thank all of our panelists for joining us for this very, very important conversation. That's all the time that we have. But truly, it does still leave us with the bottom line here. What really does Canada gain out of allowing a bunch of criminals, gangsters, and in fact terrorists to stay on its soil? It's a question that Canada really needs to think about.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.